repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.
Do it! 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 Who's doing it? Do it! Do it! All of it! Do it! Come on! Do it now! Now we'll do the rest.
Oh, these cookies!
Put that cookie down! Now!
process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source. you want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source. want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source. you want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source. repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.
All right, I'm going to go over this relay here. So this relay is a magnetically controlled relay. It's controlled by a magnet and it's controlled by two electromagnets, and it's also controlled by the two cores of those electromagnets. The iron cores of these electromagnets will present a pull force on this north-south magnet, both sides, because it's iron. So right now you see it in this position. Oh, sorry, hold on. You see the relay in the down position right now. Right there. Making contact with the bottom battery to send power to the bottom coil. This is the this is not the default state. Let me open up that image. All right, this is the default state. You notice both the coils are off. They're not being energized. And that is because the power is disconnected. So when this power gets connected here, you're going to be sending power from the battery to the coil. To the contacts, and the coil will energize, and it will look like here. No, wait, right here. Wait, sorry, there. It will look like that. So the bottom coil will get turned red. The bottom battery is red, meaning it's sending power to the bottom coil. And what happens is when you send power to this bottom coil and you send the positive out here, let me change the color of this. Hold on. Let me try green. When you send the power positive, try another color. Okay, so you're sending your positive through here to the top contact of this relay. The top contact. And there's the bottom contact. So you're going to send power through there, right? Energize the coil. And when the coil has energy, it is going to push the magnet away. So, give me a second. So now the coil is energized, and it will present a north field right here on the core. And it will present, I'm sorry, a south field. The blue on the magnet is south, red on the magnet is north. So when you energize this coil and you send your positive out this rail, the top rail, it comes out the top rail here. It flows from top to bottom on the coil, presenting you a north at the bottom, the direction of the flow. And the south will be presented at the top here. Because the blue part of the magnet is south, this south on the core will push the blue part of the magnet up. Okay? So as soon as you go from the default state, which is here, off, everything's off, and then you energize the bottom coil, as soon as that happens, the magnet's going to push up like so. Because you created a south field here to push this south field up. And that's going to push the other side of the magnet, the north field, closer to the iron here. And because of that, the iron will pick up the magnet and bring it towards it, allowing it to make contact to the bars on the top. And that image is right there. See? So after the bottom magnet energized, create a south at the top here, and then push the south magnet up. It pushed it close enough to have the magnet, to have the iron on this electromagnet attract the magnet and pull it up to give it contact. And as soon as it gets contact, you'll notice that this coil here gets energized. And as soon as that coil gets energized, just like the bottom one, it's going to do the same thing. You're going to send the positive from the top battery, a second source, a double source. Remember, this is a double source, double throw relay, not just a double throw relay, double source, double throw. So the positive of the other battery is going to enter the bottom rail here. Okay, it's going to go up the top of the electromagnet and head down, giving you your north field where the arrow is. So you have a north field being presented here on the iron core to then push away the north field on this magnet, because the red is north. So alike fields repel. And then it pushes the magnet back down to remove contact from the battery and remove charge from the electromagnet. And there it goes, right there. It pushes it down to the center. And at this point, neither one of the coils is energized. It's in free flowing, and it's being controlled by the iron on the two electromagnets to move. It's not being controlled by power. It's being controlled by iron and magnetism. So in this state, the magnet is moving back down to the bottom electromagnet through the force of magnets pulling to iron. And and then it pulls down, disregard that, then it pulls down to right about there, pulls down again. As soon as it pulls down again, it makes contact to the bottom battery, repeats the cycle, energizes the coil again, provides you a south field here on the iron core to then repel the south field on the magnet right here and make it go back up towards these contacts here and towards this iron core. So basically what you have here is a relay that is controlled by the energizing of the electromagnet. So the relay is first controlled by the iron and its attraction to the magnet. And that control puts the relay in default state. And you assumedly in default state, you have your power turned off. With no power to the circuit, it allows this magnet to pull either to this core or to this core. So the default state will be either up or down, depending on the pull direction it goes to. Because you have to keep in mind that the north field is stronger than the south field. So it's probably going to pull up or down. I don't know. Depends how close you have the iron core to the magnet. But you're going to situate these cores in a way where it attracts this magnet the way you want it, so that it does move back and forth. So you might have one core, iron core, closer than the other to the magnet to achieve that. So I hope that makes some sense. If you were to eliminate one of these electromagnets altogether, you could still make this thing work with one contact mode. Excuse me. So you could also make this thing operate like this if you want. But this, yeah, this relay also works. You know, as soon as you energize this coil by connecting here, it'll push the magnet up and disconnect the contacts. And as soon as you do that, you effectively de-energize this coil, turning it back into nothing but a piece of steel. And what happens then? Well, if this magnet moved up a little bit after you energized it and then you remove the power, well, this magnet will pull back down to this core. And then it'll repeat. So you can also make a relay like this, just simply like this, you know, triggering one source, double pole. That's what you see here. And this would be two sources, double pole. All right, I'm going to cut this short. I hope this made some kind of sense. And I will continue to discuss this if anybody's interested in talking about it. Anyway, the reason that this relay was designed was to run this circuit that you see down here. So I wanted to point out something here in this circuit real quick before I close off. These two switches, you see them? How they're open and they're not connecting to that battery. And you see these two switches, how they're closed right now. And notice there's two coils also. Those two coils represent a series connection to these two coils. These are just your triggering coils. So you would put this coil in series. It's open right now. The switch is open for this coil, so it would be in series with this coil since these two switches are open. And when you put these coils in series and then you close the switch here for that coil and energize it, then these two switches will close. You know, these two switches here are actually right here. Those contacts are right there. Okay, they're the same contacts. You just have these two coils in series. So, in that way, when you trigger power to this coil, you also send power to this coil. And by the way, these two batteries are also the same batteries. They're the same batteries. There's not four batteries here, just two. So these are the same two batteries. So when you trigger the top coil with power, you're going to send power to the bottom coil at the same time. And that will drive the wheel, or it will drive the circuit. Let me see something here. The wheel is, let me show you the wheel. The wheel is 45. The coils on the wheel are 45 apart. Let me present that screen here. Hold on. Where is it? Google. Ah, there it is. Okay, here you can see the wheel, you know, and it's how the coils are 45 degrees apart. So that's why I made this relay. The relay coils are not 45 degrees apart, they're 180 degrees. But you could see that by putting the relay coil in series with the drive coil, you could still trigger the drive coil with the relay coil and have the relay coils not in the not in the 90 degree position. Because as you see in here, the two coils are 45 degrees apart. I'm sorry, 90 degrees apart. Then why does it do that? Yeah, so you see that there's a coil on your left in green and a coil at the bottom. And that's 90 degrees around the wheel. And that's necessary because these two coils are not being triggered at the same time. They're separately triggered. And you can see that how they're moving. I was just explaining why I had to put 2 switches on this thing and not one. And it's because it was creating a short with 1 switch. I'll show that again with the short. So if you only had 1 switch here, and let's say we're switching the left source battery to the left coil right now, or let's do the right coil, okay? The right battery's powering the right coil. And you only had 1 switch, and you're only switching the negative, and you left the positive open. Oh, I'm sorry, and you left the negative. There's no switch here, and you left the positive with a switch like that. So there's just 1 switch operating this. If you did that, the problem with that is, when you do close this switch. How do I explain this? So if you only had 1 switch on each of these relays, on each of these source power batteries, it would create a short. And this is how it does it. So let's say the right side is closing the switch. Now, okay, left side is like so. Right side closes the switch. Where's the short here? Okay, the short here is from this positive to that negative. And okay, there's no short this direction because this negative is isolated by this diode from hitting that positive, right? So there was no short in that direction. But then when you open up here and close here, this is assuming you're only using 1 switch instead of 2. And when you close here, you short out this positive, the negative here, and this is no switch here, it's a dead short, like supposing we're operating this with 1 switch on each source. So this negative is already connected to the positive of the other battery, and you do not want to do that. You do not want to cross terminals on the 2 batteries, so they'll short each other out. So in either direction, not in one direction there's a short, and the other direction there is not a short. It depends where you put the switch, the single switch on each source. But if you put a double switch on both sources, like here, 2 switches, you avoid any shorts. And that is the main reason why I had to do a double source throw instead of a single source, a double pole throw instead of a single pole throw. And I have to throw both the poles on both sources to achieve this and not have any short. I'm going to be going live every Sunday to do any Q&As or questions and answers about this. It's completely worked out in my head. So if you guys are still working it out, feel free to ask me any questions about it, and I will specifically answer what's going on at that point, you know. This was a very confusing circuit to put together, but once it was put together, it actually is very simple to understand, you know. It's just confusing to understand it at first because, you know, we are all triggering coils with one of the poles of the source power. You know, we are either switching the positive or the negative. We're not switching the positive and the negative to operate our pulse motors or to operate our devices. Only time you see in the industry or anywhere out there that you see someone switching the positive and the negative at the same time from a source to a load is to reverse the direction of a motor or something like that, but not to do what you see here. This is pretty much a novel method of switching, as far as I can tell. I haven't seen this anywhere. If anybody has seen this relay or knows of a relay that does this already, I would love to buy it and set it up on this circuit. But as of now, I'm going to have to build it and when I get a lab together. Yeah, the switches are taking the place of a transistor. So if you wanted to use transistors to switch like this, you would have to use 4 of them, 2 transistors on each. Yeah, it would oscillate infinitely as long as you have power in the battery and as long as the flyback is recycled enough so that the battery doesn't drain. But from my experience, the flyback is a little bit weaker than the first initial pulse, the forward pulse. You know, it's definitely going to be way more efficient and run a lot longer than any other device that just throws out the back EMF or whatever you want to call it, the flyback. a double pulse solenoid relay. Yeah, it's a solenoid relay that switches 2 poles, and it also switches 2 sources. So I haven't been able to find a relay that you can connect 2 source powers and keep them isolated on that relay and switch both poles on both sources. Let me show you a magnet running a relay on my channel. I made this thing some years back, and it only uses one electromagnet, not 2 like you see here. Now you can see that right there. That's you see the magnet? Okay, the magnets are glued to a piece of metal that's glued to the electromagnet that has an iron core. So the iron core is going to pull that magnet attached to the piece of metal that's acting like a spring lever. It's going to pull it towards the iron core when the power's off. And by doing that, it's going to pull the contact away just far enough to disconnect power. And then as soon as the magnet on the wheel, this is a beginning SG running here, as soon as the magnet on the rotor passes the core, it re-energizes the electromagnet and pushes the magnet away again to make contact. Maybe I had that backwards. It's been such a long time since I did this thing. Try to look a little closer here, but it's right. When the electromagnet gets powered on, it actually disconnects power by pushing the magnet away from the core of the electromagnet, and by doing that, it disconnects the contact to the electromagnet. And then the spring that's connected to the lever spring that's connected to the electromagnet, it's holding the magnet in place over the core, so that when there's no power applied to the electromagnet, the core will then pull the magnet back towards it and reconnect power to the electromagnet. And then the electromagnet generates a field that opposes the magnet on the metal lever and pushes it away again and disconnects power again. It just repeats over and over again like that. So this is a single pole throw magnetic relay that's operating on the same function as the one we just looked at with the double pole. Yeah, well, this was just a quick little fun day for me to build this thing. It wasn't really anything serious, but the idea stuck with me and came in useful for the Bedini Flyback loop with the 2 batteries and the 2 drive coils system that you were looking at earlier. Well, it's not that it's better. It's what I need to be able to run the Bedini Flyback loop. I need to be able to switch 2 poles, not 1. Otherwise, it creates short. What is that? So this commutator does the same thing. It throws 2 source batteries into 2 different coils. It's the same thing, same operation, but you need to attach it to a shaft or spin it or something like that, and it's dependent on your rotor rotational for triggering, and that limits the. It's just harder to adjust the duty cycle on commutators and all that. So if you can control your duty cycle with an EMF field coming off an electromagnet, you got more control. You got more. You just run a pulse width modulator or something to the right. Well, I'm not using a pulse width modulator to control the relay, the double throw relay. I'm not using a pulse width modulator. I'm using the actual connection to power to control the switching. So it's completely controlled by when the power comes on. As soon as the power comes on, it turns off each time. So there's no real control over your RPMs or your frequency, but you can adjust the gap on the electromagnets. You can adjust the gap between the core of the two electromagnets and the magnet in the center. You could spread them further apart. It would create a longer switch time. The closer you brought them together, you would speed up your switch time. Right, it's powered by the line, right? It's not powered by a pulse width modulator. It's not frequency. It's only controlled by the time at which it takes the battery to create an EMF field in the coil and on the core. As soon as the core receives a magnetic field from the battery source power, that magnetic field will then turn off the power. So as soon as you turn on the power and create the magnetic field, it turns off the power. But when the power is turned off, the relay keeps moving in the direction it needs to switch the next event, thanks to the fact that you have two electromagnets with iron cores, and that magnet in the center is attracted to that iron. So you don't need power for that attraction. And that's why it continues to operate when the power's off. You see? So when the power's off, the natural attraction of the magnet to the iron pulls it back into position for power on. It's pretty confusing to hear that concept, but it's there. It's there. You just basically turn on the electromagnet, it pushes the magnet away, and you control your off switch. Your switching of the off, turning your switch off like that. You turn your switch off by using the field of the electromagnet to push the magnet away. And if you have your contacts connected to the magnet, and you push the magnet away from your contacts by turning the field on to your core, which will then push that magnet away, you can see how that works. And if you don't push the magnet too far away, and you're able to hold it in place so it doesn't fly away, and then it's still close enough to the single core, and it pulls back to it. Kind of like the video I showed earlier with the VCR motorhead. And here you're just, using two iron cores to create a attraction to that magnet in the center from two sides to control its direction in two directions, up and down. Yeah, it is part a solenoid relay, and yeah, it's a relay. It's a solenoid relay, but it's a double solenoid relay. Or you could do this with one solenoid relay. And if you're able to, you could do this with one solenoid relay. But the reason I'm using two electromagnets is because I already have them. They're already part of the circuit. And if you look.
want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.
Do it. 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 Who's doing it? Do it. Do it. All of it. Do it. Come on! Do it now! Now we're to the rest.
you want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source. You want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.